Hey, True Believers, Englentine here, and we are going to be taking a look at Sandman, starting with Preludes and Nocturnes, the very first story. This is going to be an ongoing. I'm going to look at all 10 chapters of the Sandman, and then at the end, we're going to have a conversation about whether or not the Sandman is really that good. Does it deserve its, what some people would say, well-earned reputation? That's what this video series is going to be about. When I first read this, I loved it. But does it stand the test of time? Some would say yes, some would say no. And it's about time we found out definitively. So, sit back, relax, and let's get this party started.
Dream a little dream of me. Dream a little dream of me.
Covers for Sandman are a bit more abstract. Like, you'll have like, okay, this is obviously a painting of Sandman of some sorts, and it doesn't really tell about what's going on. It's still a decent image, but wow, this sold? That's amazing, because this really says nothing about what's going on inside. The story itself is actually very simple considering how many pages it is. So this group of guys decide they're going to get together and they are going to call down death. That is who they're planning on taking. All the while we're seeing images of people as they dream and the dreams that they're having and everything like that. So the night these gentlemen decide to do their ritual, they cast the spell, and of course they don't get death the way they plan. Instead they capture Dream. It's a bit of a disappointment. They say, well, you know what the hell, why don't we just take all of his stuff anyway, which is important because this is going to come back to play in the rest of Preludes and Nocturnals. And then we get to see how it affects the world, and it doesn't affect everybody, obviously, because supposedly we're living in this world that no longer has the Lord of Dreams. But it does show the reactions of people who are more sensitive. Pieces of dreams go missing. Some people fall asleep for a longer period of time. Some people become narcoleptic. And some walk around as zombies. And I've actually heard of some of these conditions, so it's really kind of smart that Neil Gaiman included them. I've heard and read a story about a young lady who really just woke up 4 or 5 times a year, and it was included here. So when I had found it here, I was like, oh my gosh, this actually is something. And it's this page right here that they're talking about it. So I really enjoyed that. The old man dies. Alex is his son, and he kind of takes over, and he says, well, I'm going to give you the same deal as my dad. All I want is power and immortality and a promise that you won't take revenge on us. And Morpheus, of course, says no. And then we just get a repeat of the previous chapter of how it's affecting the world. He keeps coming back, begging for more power, until one day he does it in a wheelchair, and the guy who's pushing him breaks the circle, which gives Morpheus an out where he can actually affect them. One day he pretends to collapse, somebody goes in to check on him, and he makes his move to escape. And after taking some of his power back through the dreaming, he clothes himself, and then he decides to go and face his captor, where he discovers that they were really after death, and he goes, you guys are so freaking lucky. So lucky that you didn't capture death. And he punishes the guy by making him wake up in his dreams for eternity. From here on in, all he's ever going to do is sleep and think he's about to wake up from his nightmare. And that's basically how the book ends, where also, he does also ask the guy, where are my tools? And he says, well, we don't know. And that's going to be the basis for the rest of the book, for the most part, is him chasing after his tools, and what gives him power. Overall, I like the book. It's really strong. It's a great opener. I do think it's a bit repetitive, though. That is something I have to say about the first issue. It could be a little bit shorter, or it could have been approached in a way that it didn't basically tell the same story twice, which it did, once with a father, once with a son. Overall, though, very powerful issue and a good way to start a series. Okay, here we go. cover to issue number 2. Still not a lot here that's happening in the book. It's just a really nice image. Issue number 2 is the setup issue. This is the issue where we get the plot. He goes back to his realm. There's Cain and Abel. He's actually dragged in by a dragon of some sorts. That's what it looks like to me, a dragon, where it's like, oh my gosh, look, it's the Lord of Dreams. He's back. And after he absorbs a few things that he put his essence into and he gets some strength, he's back up and he's walking around his realm, finding out that it's just destroyed. You're meeting all the side characters too, as we meet Lucian, who flat out tells him, hey, look, you know, you're the Lord of Dreams. You're not here. The world of dreams collapsed. At first it was slow, but then the longer you were missing, the quicker it did, the quicker it fell apart. And so Dream goes to the 3 fates. Oh, by the way, I am skipping over a few things. Like we see a woman go and visit Dr. Destiny in prison. This is going to be important coming up in one of the best issues of any comic ever made. But so we return to the dream world, and like I said, he's walking about and he's finding out all the destruction. He decides to go to the 3 fates, the 3 witches, and they say each one will answer a question. And so he's like, okay, so where's my gem? Where's my helmet? Where's my bag of sand? So forth, so on. And they tell him, and then he kind of back up question. They're like, whoa, hold on. We said 1. And so they send him on his way. Oh, and the side plot here is that Abel gets a dragon, and he decides to name him Goldie. This pisses off his brother. Now, remember, it's Cain and Abel, and Abel is cursed to continuously be Abel's victim. So every time you see him, at some point in time, Cain will murder Abel, and I always kind of thought that was a decent twist as far as the Neil Gaiman Sandman was concerned. Yeah, pretty cool. How's the issue, though? It's good. I like this one. We're getting stuff going. It's really cool to meet these people. I love the fates, and I like the fact that they keep changing. So it's not like just one of them is the same. They're all 3 each other, and that is a very interesting take on that. Yeah, still a good book. I actually liked issue number 2 a little bit more than I liked issue number 1, though. I've always loved this cover because I've always liked this painting of John Constantine. That's because he's in the issue, so there you go. So in this issue, Sandman decides to go, or Morpheus decides to go and visit John Constantine. And the book starts off with John Constantine waking up, and it's Mr. Sandman on the radio, and all throughout there's all these songs about dreams and Sandman, so forth, so on. And John even says, you ever have one of those days where you think someone's trying to tell you something? And of course, they are. One thing we do, we get to meet Mad Hetty in this. This, I think, is their first appearance. I think so. I may be wrong about that. But I really liked her. I like her character, by the way. She pops up in Sandman and Death, The High Cost of Living, so forth and so on. We do get a break-in a room where a guy jumps in and he starts dreaming weird things, and it kind of ends in his death. So that's foreshadowing of stuff to come. But like I said, Sandman goes and he visits John Constantine, and here's something I want to bring up. The art. It's not good. I mean, granted, they could draw better than I can, but I can't do stick people. But if you watch the pages, you'll see that, let's see, what am I trying to say? Size changes. Like, sometimes they're almost as big as the room, and sometimes they're little boxy people. Sometimes they look normal. It really is not great art in this book. That's okay, though, because the story is actually pretty darn strong. It does live up. So far, so good as far as Preludes and Nocturnes is I guess what I'm saying. So anyway, John Constantine, he brings up the sand to him, and he's like, wait a second, I know who this is. A girl I knew took it. And they go to her house, and they find out that it's everywhere. The sand, not only is it everywhere, but she's actually turned people inside out and made them walls and hallways. It is incredibly gruesome. And she herself is worse for wear for having the bag of sand. She's addicted to Dream almost. And so Morpheus decides, actually John Constantine forces him, put her out of her misery, and so Morpheus does, and they move on. Like I said, it's a decent and strong issue. I like it. It's continuing the story at the very least, and it leads into the next one. It's a great showcase of both Morpheus and John Constantine in this issue. Another decent cover, because we know this is Lucifer, and it's Sandman Goes to Hell. Sandman number 4, this is where the book really goes to hell. Ba-dum-bum-bum, haha. So Sandman has found his sand, and he decides what next he has to get is the helmet, and he heard that it is in the possession of a demon. So he travels to hell. And there he actually sees his girlfriend, the one that he actually condemned to hell. Her name's Nala. She's mentioned before in the issues, and in the first issue, I believe. No, the one with death. Anyway, point being is, basically this is him literally just walking across hell, meeting certain demons, including Etrigan. He meets the woman that he condemned to hell, and other things. He sees how things have changed, how minor demons have become major demons, and how the power structure has actually changed across hell. And you find, or at least you get the idea, that it was because Lucifer allowed it to become this way. So Sandman does meet Lucifer, and he's like, well, yeah, I do know who's got your helmet, blah, 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 yada, yada. And it turns out it is a minor demon, and they end up getting into a battle of wits of sorts, where one says, well, I am a this, and the other one says, I am this, and they try to one-up each other. And when the one of them can't figure out something to counter the other, that person wins. Obviously, Morpheus wins. I mean, it's called Sandman. It's only 4 issues in. And this is, heck, even the trade paperback is 8 issues. It's not going to end right here. So obviously, he wins the game, gets his helmet back. It's a good issue. In all honesty, it's not the greatest of books, but it has a great ending. I love the standoff. I love them sitting there going, well, I am this and I am that, and how do they one-up each other until Morpheus, obviously, he's the winner, until he thinks of something that the demon can't counter. I enjoyed that. And also, of note, this is where Morpheus ends up insulting Lucifer, and Lucifer swears vengeance on him, which of course comes back into play in Seasons of Mist, and that's a big positive about the Sandman so far. Even in the first issue, we're going to meet characters like a woman who gave birth while she was sleeping that will have something to do with stories coming up. And after that, we get a little epilogue about Dr. Destiny escaping from prison, and of course that's going to show up in a later issue. So let's continue. Issue number 5, the cover has what looks like a robot man on the front, and you know what? That has nothing to do with what's inside. Still, I like the art, but yeah, anyway, let's continue. This is, if there is a weak issue in this book, this is it. This mainly has to do with Dr. Destiny's escape. In this case, Sandman, he's looking for his jewel, his gem. And I guess D gets a vision of this. He wants to escape as well. He runs across Professor Crane, or the Scarecrow. And basically, that's just exposition. That's all that's there for. Then he escapes. He gets into a car with a woman, holding her at gunpoint. We then see a dream of Mr. Miracles, and when he's being trained by Granny Goodness. And it's basically Morpheus trying to visit him and find out where the gem went to, because that was, of course, the last clue he got, that the gem was with the Justice League. Mr. Miracle looks through the archives, finds out a little bit about Dr. Destiny, and then decides, well, you know what, John Jones, Martian Manhunter, is the only one available that had been around at that time, so they go and visit. And that's an interesting scene because we see Martian Manhunter bow to him and call him by a different name. Obviously, every race or something has a different name for Morpheus, Dream, whatever you want to call him. And I found that to be a little bit of an interesting bit of lore. So anyway, it goes back and forth between the two, Dr. Destiny and Sandman trying to get to the gem. And we do see that Destiny, he's dropped off in the car, and the girl's like, okay, have a good time. He shoots her, but Morpheus makes it there first and grabs onto the gem. But because the gem had been being controlled by Dr. Destiny for so long, its loyalties are confused, and Morpheus is actually knocked out. And that's when Dr. Destiny comes in, picks up the gem, he walks away, and we see him in front of a diner. It's not a bad book. It's just, compared to the issues that surround it, it's not a notable book, to tell you the truth. Obviously, we need it to get from point A to point B, and definitely to 24-Hour Diner. But overall, this is not the issue that anybody remembers, except for maybe a scene or two. I remember the Martian Manhunter scene, but overall, it's pretty forgettable. At least that's in my opinion. Okay, first of all, I love this cover. Yes, it has... I don't know if you could say it has little to do with what's inside, because you could see symbols of everything that happens. I don't know. Anyway, here's something I have to be very open with. I allotted more time for this issue than any other. Now, I said I'm going to try to review this with an open mind, check out every issue as if it's the first time I read it. But to be honest, it isn't the first time I've read this. I've read these books a lot. And more so when I was younger than today, though, to be completely honest. And I understand 24-Hour Diner to be one of the best single issues of any series. Now, you could say that, yes, this is part of Preludes and Nocturnes. At the time, we weren't thinking in terms of trade paperbacks, but Gaiman was putting things together in stories. That's why you'll have them titled A Dream of You and so forth and so on as he's going along. But I still say this is the best single, or one of the best single issues of any comic book series anytime. So Dr. Destiny goes into this diner, and there's all the customers hanging around. Each one of them is given a backstory. Each one of them is given motivations. Not that that matters a ton, because the motive of what they're doing will not be motivated by their past. It'll be motivated by Dr. Destiny's whim, and that's part of what carries them through. However, a lot of times their fate is based on something that they're talking about in their past, and that's part of what makes this story great. It's layered. If you want, you've got a spurned lesbian lover, you have a businessman, the couple, the yuppie couple, you have the tired waitress, the truck stop diner goer. You're seeing that Dr. Destiny's causing all sorts of trouble with the gym, as you see at one point they're watching a kids show, and the host actually tells kids how to properly commit suicide. And Dr. Destiny begins to take over everybody's mind and has them do basically the 7 deadly sins, in all honesty, as he's going through. It's an intense book. It really is. And it's one of the best written stories I've ever read. And I'm not just talking about comic books. I'm talking about flat out, this is one of the best written stories. It's an amazing feat. I'm very glad to that it's in comic books. This is one of the things that made people start to notice Sandman. And I've actually seen by the way, this has nothing to do with it, but I've seen somebody made a fan film of this. I was just floored by it, that somebody would do that, though. If I were to name a favorite part, it would be where Dr. Destiny gives them their minds back, and we see them going nuts for a little bit. because of all the stuff that he's making them do, which makes you think that even though he's controlling them, some little part of them understands that they are doing things beyond their control. At one point, a guy's head gets cut off. At another, some girl jams pokers in her eye. They have an orgy. They have a fight. Males fight for dominance to mate, the whole 9 yards. And it's creepy. This is a horror film in one issue. It seriously is. I've read this over and over and over, and it's still a very interesting book. Look, I'm spinning wheels here. It's awesome. Even if you only get to read one issue of Sandman, this has to be it. This is the one to collect. I mean, and there's some really good stories coming up, but this might be my favorite of the entire series. And issue number 7, are they even trying? Seriously. Okay, so in issue number 7, we basically get a lot of the Dreamers are having trouble because, well, Dr. Destiny is causing all sorts of trouble. Sandman approaches him and says, dude, what you doing? And D tells him, he's causing Dreamers pain. Why? Well, I thought I would have him make me ruler of the world, but I'm just doing it now because I like it. And Sandman talks to him about what he's doing. Of course, D doesn't really care and says he'll kill him, he'll fight him. And Sandman's like, hey, I didn't come unprepared. And he puts his helmet on and says, if you're going to fight me, it's not going to be here. So they go into the dreaming, both of them. And, Destiny chases after him. And we go through a few more people's dreams and all the trouble that's being caused by not just, of course, Dr. Destiny at this point, but the battle between the two of them. And we get to where Dr. Destiny's like, hey, show yourself, show yourself. And so Sandman does, and they do actually get into a fight where basically Dr. Destiny is firing Sandman's own essence at him. So you can see how this is going to go. And in the end, in a ditch effort to totally destroy the Sandman, he destroys the ruby, which you could imagine releasing all the power in Dream, goes straight to the guy who it belongs to in the first place, and that's Morpheus. So he's holding him there, and he's like, well, I should kill you, but you did destroy the gem, and I never would have thought of that. And so he puts him back in Arkham Asylum where he belongs. End of story. It's actually a pretty darn good issue, too. It's very simple, though. This is one of the quickest reads of the entire Preludes and Nocturnes book. You would think it wouldn't be, especially for a climactic event, but you're going to find Neil Gaiman's climactic events turn out much like Stephen King endings, where sometimes they live up to what you want, but other times it's just like, and issue number 7, no. Sandman number 8, the first appearance of death. At least in this incarnation. Yeah, The Sound of Her Wings. I like that title, by the way. Now, if I'm talking about seminal issues of The Sandman, I already mentioned 24-Hour Diner, and this is another one. This is one of those that I could just read over and over, and I have. I've picked up the book just to read this chapter sometimes. It's good. I mean, like I said, we do get to meet Death. I love the fact that she brings up Dick Van Dyke in here, and she's talking about, it's a jolly holiday. Love the character, but it's the god-awful British accent. We all know that, but you know what? I don't care. Dick Van Dyke's accent in Mary Poppins is freaking charming as hell. So this is basically her and her brother walking about talking about all the stuff that he's been through and all the stuff that he's done. We mention, we get to see Nala, or she at least is mentioned again. We get to see people die and what Death has to do and how she does her job and so forth and so on. It's a very interesting book, very interesting take on the character. Obviously, Neil Gaiman was going through a goth phase at the time, and this is 1980s. You have The Cure. I believe Sandman was inspired. The look of it was inspired, but what's his name from The Cure? Never a Cure fan. You're not going to convince me that they were good. I've heard their songs. God bless you if you like them. I just wasn't one of those people. That's all. I just lost subscribers. Anyway, it's I don't know what to say about this that I haven't said already, and I already know that I've just been through first few pages. But this is one of the most perfect ways to end the book, because it's on a lighthearted note. We do get some foreshadowing to some future stories. We get to meet his sister, who, along with Sandman, is one of the best creations of Neil Gaiman, and definitely the most interesting character, or one of the most interesting characters of this particular series. It's absolutely necessary. I think this is another one. If you're only going to buy a few Sandman books, obviously you're going to want to get the stories that fit one issue, and this is one of those, and it's absolutely fantastic. There you go, gang. Preludes and Nocturnes. It is a solid book. Now, it does have 1 week issue. I mentioned that. Otherwise, I've got to say, overall, it's a strong start. It really is. It's a good, strong start to the series. And it sets up a lot of stuff, and I think that's one of the things that makes it. If you've read through the whole thing, you know that even in just the first issue, they set up maybe 3 or 4 different stories, maybe more. And along the way, we're just getting to know more and more about people that we're going to meet. So it is very good, the foreshadowing. I do like the individual issues work on their own. It's almost Monster of the Week, but they're good monsters in Preludes and Nocturnes. This actually changes as we go. While there will be one-off stories, more often than not, every book is going to serve the story. And that's something a lot different than what we get here. Like I said, this is Monster of the Week. We started off with Hellblazer. You go to, then you go to fight the Hell, and then you've got to face off Dr. D. But I guess that's good, because you want a whole bunch of single issues in the beginning, just in case that's that first issue for someone. So anyway, there you go. That's what I got to say about that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to click like, share, subscribe. Help out the channel going over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi. You can even commission your own video. And thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.